Hello, Motorrad World fans, and welcome to Talking MotoGP, where we've got a lot to talk about. So make sure you are nice and comfortable. Make sure you've got your favorite beverage, whether it be a nice warm cup of tea, cup of coffee, um, uh, workout juice, Coke, alcohol, whatever the hell you want, preload, pre-workout, pre-whatever, because we have got a lot to talk about. The first race of MotoGP 2023 is done and dusted. It took place at the Portimao circuit, the roller coaster, and there's a reason why it's called the roller coaster, and we are going to go through all of that now. I'm pleased to say that I won't be alone tonight, other than everyone that's already tuning in: Hannes van der Sant, Devin BDC, Ray Karopis, I hope I say that right, John McLaughlin, Dave McBain, Daniel Starr, Stan Uha, Jordan Barber, Russell Edwards, Nicole Brett, Sean, and Ronnie Good from the beautiful sunny UK. Hey Sean, how's it going, my bud? I need to see you sometime soon, that's for sure. Justin DP, Dale Bryce Northard, Brian Ritchie, okay, I've lost track. There's too many names coming up. Why can't you all just be John Smith, Brian Smith, Paul Smith? You all have to be funny names, different names. Luis Miguel Falcao. I know that because he does some work for us at MRW. So that's an easy one. The Short Circuit Racing Series is joining us. Hello, Short Circuit Racing Series. Had a fantastic race weekend out at Idubi. A fantastic little race series. The next Brad Binder, Darren Binders, Richey Mudleys, they're all coming from that series. There's no doubt about it. Anthony Carrero, how's it, Rob? What a lacquer weekend we had, and what a cracker. Natalie Mayring. Yes, thank you all for joining us. As I said, I'm not alone tonight. Apart from all of you, I've also got Sheridan Moraes joining me. Shez is back home in South Africa. We'll talk to him a little bit about what he's been doing in that. But yeah, I gave Shez strict instructions to watch the MotoGP this weekend, because it's hard for me at the track to actually watch the race, especially when you've got a Trevor Binder with you who likes to stand in the middle of the track in the blisteringly hot heat. You don't even want to see my neck. Like, I came back from Portugal, one of those luminous red, proper British UK tourist type people. So I'm like luminous red everywhere. But yeah, so you kind of just see a couple of corners, and then you're so focused on Brad Binder and his splits, and Trevor does more laps than Brad and Darren put together. Like, so yeah. So I've managed to watch a little bit of the highlights, took down some notes. But yes, Sheridan Moraes is joining us, and he'll give us some expertise. So without further ado, Sheridan Moraes, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, Shez, how you doing?
Good, thanks. Nice to be here again, Rob.
Yeah, lekker, my bud. Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. The thought of me doing this alone tonight, there's just so much to talk about. So I think it'll just be better if I just bounced off someone, and there's no one better or faster in the entire planet than Sheridan Moraes. Tell us quickly, you went over to America, Daytona, big race of the year, very excited, and then destroyed yourself.
Yeah, it was Daytona's had a thing with me because I was since 2020 when I first went there. It got cancelled. The following year I couldn't get the trail permission to get there, and then last year obviously I had a good race and ended up on the podium. And then unfortunately, yeah, this year big eyesight, broke my ankle, whiplash, all sorts of stuff. But yeah, I'm coming right slowly from that. So got Lamar 24-hour in 3 weeks, so I'm sure I'll be ready by then. I'm already starting to train now, so yeah, it's going good with recovery.
And that Daytona was like 220 k's an hour or something. That thing just ejected you.
Yeah, it was a massive one, very strange. As I was in fourth gear and as I shut the gas to go into a fast left-hander, fastest turn, the rear came around and just spat me off. So it was a massive crash, one of the biggest ones I've had. But yeah, luckily the protective gear we have these days is so good, and the guys I'm sponsored by, and that's so good. So yeah, very fortunate that came off lightly for what it was. And yeah, I'm very happy that I'm recovering so quick, because when I was there, the doctor said, yeah, 6 weeks and maybe still not right in it, but it's been 2 weeks now and I'm already starting to ride the bicycle a bit and that. So yeah, I am very lucky and relieved that I'm going to be ready for the next one now.
And it's such a pity you injured, man. You could have been racing MotoGP in Argentina this weekend, because half the field's not there.
Yeah, it seems that way. There's like 4 guys missing already.
Yes, it's crazy. It was. I mean, you've done a lot of laps around Portimao, probably more than the whole MotoGP paddock combined.
Yeah.
You know, it's called the roller coaster. It's a fantastic track. It's a fantastic place to go watch motorcycles. Where it is situated there in Portimao, close to Faro and Lagos and stuff. It's a beautiful place. It's one of the cheaper ones to go to. The food's fantastic. The pricing's really good. I've got the best Uber in the entire world, Paul Pacheco, and a big thank you to Paul Pacheco for accommodating me, feeding me, clothing me. Yeah, him and his beautiful wife just really looking after me, and that was how I was able to go there. Check out the cool content that I put on the Facebook page and the YouTube channel, and it's all really a big thank you to Paul Pacheco. So thanks to him. But it's a great place to go watch MotoGP. It's a great place for the riders to ride. But there were a lot of crashes this weekend, and it's a deceiving place, Portimao, because even in the slow corners where the guys crash slowly, they force crashes because there's just so much momentum all over that track. But why is it, do you think, there was just so many crashes? I know it was hot in the heat, but is it just a case of it's that kind of track that lures you in, that you think, I could just push a little bit harder, or do you think MotoGP's just got to that level now where these guys are like just flat out balls to the wall every single session, every single corner?
Yeah, I think it's come down to that it's so cutthroat. You know, there's such a small margin for success, if I can say that way, in the motorcycles in general. I mean, as you know, the whole paddock's just struggling to just be there, you know, in terms of riders. So yeah, in terms of the level, the absolute best is in MotoGP, and that's gotten so cutthroat. Like I say, if you're not going to be cutting it, you're going to end up without a ride, or I don't know, you know, paying for a riding World Superbike or something like that. It's gotten very, very hectic. So obviously the riders are now, you're always putting everything on the line, but now it's like even more so, you know. I think we've touched on this before, but Dorna have done really good in Superbike, making it a control tire, their MotoGP control tire. I think they did great by doing that. And now even more so by bringing the rules down to like ECUs, and everything's so controlled that whether you I know in MotoGP there's guys on a year or two old bike, but essentially the bikes are the same thing. They still get the aero upgrades and that. And I mean, as you could see down the straights, the old bikes are just as fast, maybe even faster than the new ones. So the bikes are all exactly the same, you know. Yeah, the Honda's a turd at the moment, but it's still the same. They're all on the same Honda essentially, you know. Yeah. It's just the actual manufacturer that's down at the moment. So everybody has a fair opportunity is what I'm getting at. So anybody that climbs on a bike, they're there, you know. They can be they have the opportunity to ride as fast as the guy that's winning on that bike. I know it's not the case, like Morbidelli's going through a rough patch and whatever, but I'm just putting the example as in why everything's so close and there's so much fast crashes and that. I mean, throughout last year there wasn't major and a lot on one weekend, but this was, I mean, first race of the year, new formats, a lot of pressure. If you look at the grid, there's so many contracts, they're only 1 and 2 year. So people are trying to make their statement now and get a hand onto the trophy for the championship, you know?
Yeah, it is. I can feel it being in the paddock. It is so cutthroat. It really is. There's no room for error. It was round one of the championship, and I promise you, in the media, in the paddock, in the pits, wherever you were, it was, DJ Antonio's, not going to last the season. Morbidelli's not going to last the season. Brad Binder and KTM are over. It's so cutthroat. It's like you got to remind yourself, guy, it's round one. There's 42 races this year, exactly. So it's become such a crazy sport that it almost just it does need to take one step back. Aleix Espargaro was saying things have got to change, because you've got 4 or 5 riders out, you've got 16 riders potentially on the grid for this weekend's race. There just seems to be too much pressure on these riders, and I say to a lot of people in the paddock that I meet, and a lot of talks and that I do, the problem is these riders in MotoGP have become a product to us as the fans, to the media, to Dorna. So it's just the circus and this monkey show. Listen, go out there and put it on the line. Have a sprint race. That adds more pressure now in the qualifyings, because your qualifyings have become a sprint, because you've got to get into a good qualifying position for the sprint race and the main race. So there's just no time where you can hop on the bike and just go spin some laps just to get comfortable and feel. Every
Exactly.
single lap counts. And I think that is why we saw a lot of these crashes. You know, we'll jump straight into the Marc Marquez incident, because that's obviously the big talking point there.
Yeah.
You know, so I was standing in the middle of the track with Trevor and Paul, and we were watching it, and the coverage we were watching on the MotoGP app was about 20 seconds delayed. So we're watching, next minute we hear the whole of Portugal. I mean, I think from Lisbon we could hear people screaming, and we were like,
Even a fisherman.
yes. I was like, something has happened to Miguel Oliveira. There's no doubt about it. Next minute he comes on, there's no Miguel Oliveira. We find out what happened. Now, touching on that incident, I'm going to give you my opinion, and then I'd love to hear your opinion, obviously, and then people can comment here. You know, let's just keep it neat and tidy, because one thing I haven't enjoyed about coming out of the race weekend is just, you know, people call themselves fans, and whether you like the rider or don't like the rider, you're a fan of MotoGP. And some of the comments and things that have come out after this crash are disgusting to me, are pathetic to me. I've heard some MotoGP pundits and journos from South Africa that have said the most ridiculous things I've ever heard in my life, completely contradict themselves. On Saturday, they defend crashing, and people want to, you know, we want to see crashing and that. And on Sunday, they go, just, I don't know who they think they are, just talking about Marc Marquez the way they do.
Yeah.
But this is how I see it. Marc Marquez, Honda, not where they need to be. Qualifying, kind of sugar-coated where the Honda is. The sprint race, kind of sugar-coated where the Honda is. So he's got this confidence. Now, the worst thing that could have happened to Marc Marquez heading into the main race on Sunday was pole position and the third place in the sprint race, because now it gives him this confidence. They had a plan the whole weekend. Yeah, if we can get top 5, it'll be great, But all of a sudden, pole position, third in sprint race. Oh, you know, we're not that bad. So when you give a rider like Marc Marquez that confidence, you know, the 2013 kind of 7 or 19-year-old Marc Marquez comes out and he wants to play. The biggest problem on Sunday is he went with a hard front tire, which he has to do on the Honda. On the KTM, we know you have to do it, although Jack Miller kind of dismissed that as well, but we'll talk about that later. So this is the mistake Marc Marquez made, and I'm not justifying the move. It was a stupid move from Marc Marquez. It was ridiculous. Lucky that no one is seriously hurt. But what happens is Marc Marquez said himself there was not enough heat in the front tire, locked the front, picked it up, tagged Martin. That tagging Martin shot him into Miguel Oliveira, and we all know what happened from there. Okay, so
Yeah.
ridiculous move. Marquez deserves a penalty, double long lap penalty. I think maybe a pit lane start, or potentially missing a race meeting. Yes, punishment could have been harder, but there's no need to go out and say Marc Marquez deserves to die and he must retire from MotoGP. He makes MotoGP worse. I mean, some of the stuff is just ridiculous. It was a stupid move, yes, but MotoGP is better with a Marc Marquez in it. Okay. Yeah, I know he's pulled moves like this before, and it probably won't be the last time we've seen him pull these moves. But Valentino Rossi pulled some stupid moves in his life. Jorge Lorenzo pulled some stupid moves in his life. Brad Binder's pulled some 1 or 2, you know, crazy moves in his life. Darren Binder has pulled some crazy moves in his life. You know, Darren Binder a couple of years ago, similar kind of move into the same corner, taking out Dennis Foggia, where, you know, planned a move to pass someone, got it wrong, tagged someone, and that momentum took him in, and down he went. But the comments on Marc Marquez from you know, armchair pundits and Facebook people, it doesn't need to go that far. It really doesn't. I saw a stupid move, a desperate Marc Marquez that was confident on a package that's not yet there, trying to pull a move that wasn't there so early on with a hard front tire. Got it wrong, apologized afterwards, deserves a big ban. But don't go putting the guy on a crucifix and wanting to kill him. So that's my 5 cents worth on the whole Marc Marquez thing. I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, exactly the same thing. I think a big problem with life in general these days, but with our racing, this thing that we love so much, is that you've got this social media thing where there's nobody that's going to punch you in the face when you say something retarded. So I think that's the big problem, is that people do stuff on the social media for attention and comments and likes and all these kinds of things. Because, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, Marc Marquez isn't reading it. It's just buddies and, you know, maybe a few guys it reaches. But yeah, it's definitely wrong. And I'm very doubtful that these people actually mean these things. You know, like I said, I think they do it just for a bit of attention, because the stuff that gets said absolutely makes no sense. Never mind for people that don't understand the sport, but there's people in the sport that say like crazy things. And but yeah, I agree 100%, and I agree definitely a penalty. Mainly because, like you say, it's a rider, and there are riders that are like that, but generally it's the riders that the public love, and that's why they love them, because they take those chances, and you know they're there to win, and they're so hungry to win that they make these silly mistakes. And you've listed a lot of the riders that are like that. Darren's been, like you said, like he's had a lot of crash in it, but the guys hang on by the skin of his teeth to just try and be there, you know. So people don't see all this stuff. People don't take into account what Mark's had to do just to get back there, just to be racing, you know. So yeah, I think in terms of racing, it's a guy that's caused a lot, done silly things like this a lot. But as well as that, the lap before that, he literally locked the front wheel up on that hard front tire. So that, I mean, that should be can say an explanation from Dorna's side to him, saying, look, you had a warning from it. Why would the next lap would you do the exact same thing, you know? Just to start thinking. So in terms of that, yeah, and like a whatever, the double long leg penalty, whatever they want to do, some sort of penalty like that. Missing races and stuff, I think, like too far. I mean, people have forgotten, like you said, Rossi and them used to do things like this when they were racing against one guy, because there were two guys on the same tires in the old championship, or there was two guys on factory the same bikes. It's not like that anymore. Everyone's got the same opportunity as long as they can get to that championship. So now it's cutthroat. There's tenths, there's thousandths of a second in a lap time. And back then, and there were 1 second was from first to second on one lap, you know. So yeah, it's very different times, but there were even people doing it back then. And then sometimes it was a case of actually bullying, and even then the crowd loved it. I understand the speeds are, I mean, it's not much higher, but the speeds are higher, and there's a lot more people because everyone's always close together. And this is why you see these big the deaths and the high numbers of injuries in the smaller classes, because everybody's always bunched up. So when somebody crashes, there's nowhere for everyone to go. And now with MotoGP and that getting so close, it's kind of becoming the same thing. When there's a small mistake like this, if it was just them two, Mark would have just bulleted in front and crashed on his own, and Martin would have just ran wide. Whereas now, obviously, there's people to hit. So yeah, I think it was just blown out of proportion, and people are just harping on about it and stuff. And yeah, it's just making an unnecessary thing out of it. Eh?
Yeah, it's just comments like, you know, he intentionally went in there to hurt Miguel Oliveira or another rider. I mean,
so silly. Yeah.
When I read a comment like that from, like you said, from supposed experts or professionals, I look at that and I go, I mean, that has any rider ever gone? I mean, I can speak for myself, and I'm sure I can speak for you. I've never gone out on track going, yes, I'm going to take somebody out now, and I'm going to go hurt them, because he looked at my wife.
Yeah.
I mean, for goodness sake, man. So I think what amplified it was the fact it was Miguel Oliveira. Had it been Pecco Bagnaia and Miguel won, it would have been a completely different, you know, it was the fact it was Miguel Oliveira who was right up there. You know, Miguel's had a torrid time at Portimao and his home race, and this was supposed to be like the swan song on Aprilia. He's left KTM at his home track. Miguel Oliveira goes out and wins, you know. So I think that's what amplified it. And there's a nice comment here from, I hope I get this name right. Shez, you're a bit of Portuguese. You got a bit of Portuguese in you. How do you say that name?
Filipe Brandão.
Filipe Brandão. Okay, so it's a long. I'll leave it up here. Let's read it. From a Portuguese hardcore Miguel Oliveira fan, the most serious thing to point to Marc Marquez is the fact it happened on the third lap of a 25-lap race. That is quite hard to take, along with a ridiculous penalty. Now that the damage is done, everyone should learn and move forward. Miguel Oliveira gave the example, behaving himself as a true gentleman as he normally does. Greetings all. So I agree with that. Like exactly what you said, Dorna needed to go to Marc Marquez. His team needed to go to Marc Marquez. Marc Marquez needs to look at himself and go, it was the third lap. You said it yourself. You're on a hard front tire. You already had a lockup. You know, what were you thinking? And I know what he was thinking. He was thinking, you know, pole position, good sprint race. Yeah, exactly. And I've got to go with these guys. If I don't go with these guys, you know, I'm out of it. Yeah. And that's the reality of where Marc Marquez and the Honda is. Every single session I watched Marc Marquez out on track and in pits, he would find someone. There was
Yeah,
hardly a lap where Marc Marquez was by himself, and that is where they are. They've got to tag to get a lap, and
100%.
Mark says it. That's where he is. But with that come, he's not this confident rider he's confident in his ability, and that's why this mistake probably happened. But his machine's not there yet. So that combination is detrimental to him at the moment. He's got to, and I loved his comments after the sprint race when he was on the podium. He said the honesty from his team is what helped him. The team said, listen, Mark, we looked at the data. You've got to change your riding style. You have to. And I could see it from the FP1 session to the sprint race, where Jean Mir was almost, he was really fast out of the box on that Honda, because he's got this combination of a bit more of a smoother riding style, but with a bit of aggressive in it. And I think Honda told him, listen, you cannot ride this bike like you did in 2013, 20. You can't. It cannot be ridden like that. You've got to smooth out the riding style a bit. And that frustrates him, because he still said, how dare you tell an 8-time world champion that he needs to change. But this is where MotoGP is at the moment. This is what MotoGP riders have to do. They've got to change things. And Marc Marquez needs to look at himself, because it was a ridiculously stupid move. It was. And he deserves a penalty. I mean, people forget he's damaged his hand and he's missing Argentina, a race where he could have done well. So, he's penalized himself by that stupid move. But let's move on from it. Yes, it's unfortunate Miguel Oliveira is injured, and I'm not surprised Miguel is injured, because that impact was mad.
I thought it was going to be worse.
Yeah, I did. When I saw him come on his scooter with his dad, I was like, adrenaline is getting that guy through, because later tonight, when you try and come right with your missus, that's when you feel it the most,
Yeah, and it's sad for him, because he is such a nice guy, and it's like you can't say he can't catch a break because he's in MotoGP, but in one way he can't, because every time something's going good for that guy, something goes wrong, and it's just hard, because being in the privateer Aprilia and running at the front, and possibly like being the guy for Aprilia to head the championship this year, now he's missing, like you said, there's 42 rounds this year, so 42 races, so there's a lot coming. But it's just sad, because he looked like he was going to be their boy, actually.
He was, and Sven Gruner makes a good point here. Marc Marquez history plays against him. He even admits that he's a bastard on track. I mean, Pedrosa was known for his clean riding, and when he did crash into someone, nobody batted an eyelid. So I agree with what Sven's saying, that Marc Marquez has become the poster boy for this aggressive, hardcore riding. So, the spotlight is on him when he does something like this. It's amplified even more. And he does deserve a certain amount of battering. Like, Mark, you can't do that. But not to the extent that it's gone through. So I think
he needs a lecture. He needs Dorna to sit down with him, with his manager and his team manager and a few, whatever the necessary people, and have this talk, I think that's what he needs, more than a penalty, because a penalty, I mean, he's had penalties in the past and he's been through this before. So more of that, and it's just about thinking. It's not that he's doing it on purpose. It's just about thinking ahead, you have to, there's consequence to everything you do. So, and especially like that, when you lock the front wheel up, like nearly crash the lap before, and then the next lap you do the exact same thing. I mean, what's to be expected?
Yeah, the thought pattern wasn't there from Mark. Like I said, the worst thing that could have happened for Mark heading into that main race was the pole position and the sprint race podium, actually.
Yeah.
Because it filled him, more so him, with this kind of this false pretense that everything was okay. He was saying the whole weekend, every media and it was so weird. Being at the track, you go into this little media room, you'll know it's in the corner where the pool is there. And Jack Miller, the performance that he put on this weekend, 15, 20 media were around this guy. Every single media person that was upstairs came down around him. Marc Marquez, 4 or 5 up until then, because no one really expected anything from him. After the pole position and the sprint race, there was, this crowd that came back there. But that pole position, I think just Mark went back and went, you know what? And Mark is that kind of rider. He breeds on confidence. So when he got that pole position and that third place, going into Sunday, he went, you know what? I'm going to make the headlines here. Marc Marquez on a crappy Honda puts it on the podium again.
Definitely, yeah.
And it was desperation. It was a desperate rider filled with confidence on a machine that just is not there to do it yet.
Yeah.
needed more heat in it. How's this for sour grapes? Listen to this, Oak. Sean Portman, Rob pulled a move like that on me once in the 24 hour. I did. I must be honest, hands up. And my mom's got the photo in her lounge because it's her favorite son passing her second favorite son, and she's only got 2 sons. But I did. I came from a mile back and I just shoved it on the inside. But there were no penalties or anything back then. It was just good old school hardcore racing.
There wasn't TV either.
There was no TV. There was nothing. Okay, just going through some of the comments here. I think that's where we can leave the Mark. I mean, we could spend hours on the whole Mark pick.
Yeah.
And I know people have got their own comments, and a lot of them are justified. And I agree that it was ridiculous, but I don't agree with where it was taken, especially like you said, from some of the professionals or so-called professionals that are in the sport. It's just ridiculous. The next point that I've got just shares before we get onto the riders out, and that is KTM. Our Brad Binder's in there, so we'll jump straight into that. We normally keep people waiting, but with load shedding and everything, we never know how much time we have in South Africa. So Brad Binder. Now, I did not know that Brad was carrying this injury into the weekend. I knew that he had the crash late on in the Portimao test a couple of weeks before. I knew it was quite a big one. Turn 7 is it's quite a fast downhill right-hander. You carry quite a bit of momentum there, but it was his out lap, cold tire, and down he went. When I got to the track, I was told, Brad's got this neck injury. And when I first saw Brad, he was kind of like this stiff guy. I was like, geez, what's going on here? And then, via the grapevines through his team and his manager and his dad and other people were like, no, it was a massive crash. Think Jorge Martin's crash a couple of years ago. It was almost it was almost a replica of the crash. Cold tire, down he goes, dug his head into the tar, and then just barrel rolled through the kitty litter, which also like ripped his neck. And anyway, hurt neck, sprained neck, all the soft tissue damage, pulled muscles all the way down into his shoulder. Had the kind of week and a half off and kind of just, was nursing it, doing exercises, thinking it was okay. Goes out FP1, and as soon as he goes down the straight, brake, sits up at 300 k's an hour, that wind, and apparently just feels a snap in his neck, like da-da-da-da. And obviously that just activates something, with all that G-force and that. The guy hardly does any laps in FP1, is, 2-3 seconds off what he should do. And at that point, we kind of thinking, I still remember seeing Bob Moore, his manager, Guidotti, and a couple of other guys, I can't remember else, like huddled around, kind of making this decision. What should we do with this guy? Should we rest him to 100% for Argentina, or should we? Anyway, just like you and Brad and most riders, bugger that, I'm going to ride. So anyway, they inject him and he kind of gets better. But the neck problem was not the only problem Brad had. Brad had this problem of KTM were testing a lot of parts from what I can tell. Different chassis, different kind of things. I'm not 100% sure on what, but so leading up into the sprint race, and so he's done FP1, FP2, FP3, qualifying, Q1, Q2, and the sprint race. He's pretty much done all those sessions on a completely different package every time. The only time he really got a consistent package was the warm-up on Sunday morning, and standing trackside where we were standing, coming out of 5 into 6 into 7. His bike had been pumping there the whole weekend. He couldn't hold a tight line in turn 5 coming down the hill there. Then all of a sudden, after Jack's fantastic qualifying performances and sprint race performances, Brad's now got that checkers carrier rear aero thing on the back. And they've obviously made some changes, because now here's this much more stable motorbike going through that section. So we're looking at this going, well, that's fantastic. And then we all know what happened in the race. Brad, the machete that he is, from 14th place to 6th place, could have finished 4th. No injections. Let me just tell you, no injections, no painkillers, because he said what he had on the Saturday kind of just made him drowsy. Know where he was, so he decided no painkillers, nothing. Fantastic performance, brilliant performance. Well done, Brad Binder, sensational. He said 5 laps to go. He couldn't feel his face. He couldn't feel his body. He couldn't see. But anyway, he pulls off this amazing ride. Now, again, armchair warriors, Facebook pundits, Facebook journalists, even me to an extent, that little bit of doubt creeps in, because now you're like, oh God, here we go again. Brad and KTM. Here we go again. And Jack's doing so well. And then you start already again, forgetting we're at round one. Oh, Brad's going to be fired by KTM, and he's going to be back in Moto2, and he's going to World Superbikes, and everyone now goes, Brad's useless. And then on Sunday, he's all of a sudden the hero again.
Yeah.
You know how it works. But how I look at this, and looking at it from the inside out, I promise you, and you'll know, when you're in the paddock, it's a completely different story. I still remember going to his team after the Friday and thinking, geez, guys, what are you going to do? And they're like, don't worry, we've got a plan. It's all good. Don't stress.
Yeah.
And it was nuts. They pull it off. I mean,
Yeah.
considering the details of how little track time he had on an actual setup bike that he liked, and with his neck injury, I mean, it was a fantastic result.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, you got to remember as well, I know they've done lots of laps and testing, but the other guys are spending weeks when our team for the endurance racing was testing at a race, Alex Rins had been there for 2 days already on a Honda, and he did the 3 days with us, and then went straight to another 5-day track day. So it's just an example. I mean, all of the guys were there. Arbolino was there on his R1, and they're all just riding from the end of last season until now. Whereas Brad and them come home and they don't really do anything. They ride bicycles and they screw around a little bit, because the bikes they do have here are so out of touch with over there that they don't feel it's beneficial to go ride. So they'll ride once or twice to just get their eye in. But other than that, they don't do that much. So yeah, you got to keep in mind those guys, even at Portimao itself, they were there all on pretty much super bike spec bikes, maybe between a super bike and super stock. And they were riding around at Portimao 3, 4, 5 days, So they've all done a lot of riding. Other than that, also, it's just not Brad's style. Brad he's always been like that. So I mean, you can see he's working on his lap time, and he's got it right a few times. You can always see when he's looking for a toe on track and that. But until he perfects that, and I think it's a bit of a confidence thing as well, until he perfects that lap of getting him on those front 2 rows, it's always going to be these amazing performances from a bit further back, because when he started at the front, he's there, So I think once he can just start consistently starting on the front 2 rows, like any championship contender, serious contender, it's always going to be these amazing results to 4th place. But if in the reality, if he could have started there, maybe he could have gone with Bagnaia, So, and obviously Vinales, he was so close. So I don't think it's very far away. I do think that the KTM's aero, I don't like this whole aero thing, because I think it's just changing the sport in the wrong way, the way that none of us like a Formula One. It'll never be Formula One, it's a motorcycle, but it's kind of going that direction. You can see it because the KTM, without as good of a aero package, slides more and moves around more and stuff like that. And obviously, like you said, Honda telling Marquez he needs to smoothen out, kind of the same thing. Like Marquez wants the thing to slide because that's how he used to win. But now, with all this aero stuff going on, you don't want the bike to slide. It's like, other than from max speed to a hairpin, the bikes don't ever slide, So I think, KTM can just maybe improve that side a bit, that aero side. But their engine, I mean, you can't really compare anything to the Ducati, but to everything else, their engines and that look really good. And obviously the bike's capable, because Jack could qualify on pole. I don't think there was a doubt in Brad's mind either that the bike's capable. I think the doubt was that it varied so much from circuit to circuit, whereas the Ducatis would be a tenth off either way at a bad circuit. They were half a second off at a bad circuit, So I think that was just the only doubt. But I know I don't think Brad's ever had in his mind that the bike's not capable. So he definitely gives it his all in with regard to that, because he's got the confidence to do so. I think as the races go on and he's got his eye in a lot more, and I think he's going to get that lap time right, and then he's going to be there for those podiums, I believe, every round. So we'll see. It's nice that you can have a teammate that's always going to be there as well. Miguel was obviously consistent and always fast in that, but I mean, Jack's bringing over a lot of information and stuff for them to work with, and he's definitely going to be there every race as well, and be helping, not just following to get speed from Brad's side or Brad himself, but contributing to Brad's speed and helping them go fast on their side as well.
I think you've summed it up perfectly there. And this also kind of got my hair standing up on Friday and Saturday when Jack was outperforming Brad. Never mind the fact that the neck injury is like, but why is this such a bad thing?
A good thing.
It's a very good thing because Jack, you know, Brad and KTM had this checklist. Can the KTM run on soft tires? No. Can I do a fast lap? No. That was Brad and the KTM combination because, like you said, Brad's just not that kind of rider. Brad can do race-winning lap times every single lap.
Yeah.
He needs to improve on his qualifying. He knows that. KTM know that. Now you've got a Jack Miller coming in with his new Ducati, kind of entourage. And let me tell you, they must have paid those top Ducati guys a lot of money because the holy grail for any Italian is to work for Ducati. So to take a Ducati diehard guy who's got Ducati probably tattooed on him somewhere and bring him into KTM, and they looked weird in orange, I must say. I keep forgetting their names. They're funny Italian names, but all these Ducati guys that you used to see next to Dovi, Stoner, all these great Ducati minds are now wearing orange. It was just the weirdest thing ever. But anyway, so they've come in and they've got no script. In many ways, Brad and his team have got the script right. This is our beam frame.
That doesn't work exactly.
Exactly. Jack's come in there and Jack said it straight to me. We've got no script. If he chucked the checkers bar on the thing, arrow thing on the back, he chucked it on first because he was like, well, what have I got to lose? Let me put soft tires. What have I got to lose? Everyone thinks I'm going to finish last, or everyone thinks I'm not going to be competitive. So in a way, it's brilliant because now, you've got Brad who's, you've got to do this. You're the Sunday man. You've got your routine. That's great. But then you've got a Jack going, everything's new to me and my team. We're just going to try everything. And it worked because Jack made the soft tire work, made a fast lap time work. Okay. Well, how did you do that? Now they've got that information. And that fed through to Brad, and it made his life easier on the Sunday race because whatever little setup things that Jack used worked because it made the bike more rideable for Brad on Sunday. Jack was right in the hunt. People think, Jack was up. Jack was right there. I mean, Jack he was right there in that
both races. It was only really the Ducatis that balked both of them to get the gap so big. If it wasn't for those Ducatis getting in the way by passing down the straight, they would have escaped from them. And both of them were consistent. It's not like he had this massive performance and then a massive drop. He maintained as well.
So what was really impressive from my point of view with Jack here, and I'm going to touch on a comment here from Jonathan Borg. No one thought Jack would do so well in quali and sprint. If someone would have said where he'll position from the day before, everyone would have called him crazy. And that's exactly why I was one of those guys. I was like, there's no ways he's going to jump on this KTM. Testing didn't go fantastic. And Jack was the first guy in the media debrief to say testing and racing is two completely different things.
Yeah.
And massive credit to my team because they said, let's try this, let's do this. And it worked because KTM came out of this race weekend with an injured Brad Binder finishing in 6th place and a brand new Jack Miller with his whole Ducati team finishing in, I think it was 8th or 7th.
Yeah.
But they had two bikes close together on track, fighting for top 4 positions. And what they did was Jack proved the KTM can be fast on soft front, soft rear.
Yes, yeah.
On a fast lap time, qualifying 4th and fastest on the Friday. And then on Sunday, because I still asked Jack on the Saturday after sprint race, that's fantastic. You've done that, my bud. But now you've got to go put a hard front on and a medium rear. Now what you're going to do? And he's like, we've got the data from the test. We did a little bit of laps on Friday with it. But you know what? Let's see what happens. And they competed. So they competed on the weekend on softs, mediums, and hards. KTM have never done that. You had to have a hard front and a medium rear most of the time. That was all you could run. You couldn't be competitive otherwise.
Exactly.
So they eliminated a lot of things. And that is because of Jack Miller, his team, and that process. So for people to go and listen, initially I was also like, God, Jesus, Jack's going to up, he's going to do better than Brad, and he's ticking these boxes that Brad couldn't. But in the bigger scheme of things, you look at this and you go, this is exactly what KTM wanted. They wanted a competitive teammate. And I think sometimes we forget how fast Jack Miller actually is, and we don't give him enough credit for that. As Jonathan says, we all kind of said he wasn't going to do well. So now you've got this team, and you've got this teammate who, Brad's always going to be very scripted and politically correct. And he has to be, because that's how KTM like it. But now you've got this KTM teammate in Jack, who's a little bit more unscripted and has the freedom, because no one expects anything of him, to go try these things. And
yeah, an open mind,
yeah, that combination is ultimately going to, and it has already worked for KTM. Listen, this brings up the next point. We were singing the praise of KTM after the first round last year in Qatar, where Brad finished in second place. And the best was 11th at Qatar, and they've solved the problems. KTM is done and dusted. And then they rolled out the next couple of races and kind of like battled again. So we need to just hone ourselves in. It's round one. But if you put all those little pieces together from this weekend, from Jack and Brad's side, I mean, even speaking to Pit Byrat, and he was talking to Trevor, he was like, we had two KTMs up at the front. We had them compete on all these different segments where we've never competed before.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly.
And now, I mean, they just started using them. Now they can actually start working with them, So more important than even the results and all that stuff, it's that now they know that they can start working in these other areas,
Exactly. Well, I think Jack and his whole team have just opened up a whole new world in many ways. They're like,
a breath of fresh air,
just throw it on. Just throw it on. And this, and that's kind of, okay, rounding up the KTM, I think we've done that perfectly there. This is the perfect opportunity to jump to Yamaha, because Yamaha, in many ways, I think they need this. You've got your Fabio, who, sure, he looked like a lost man. He just looked miserable after Friday. That kid in his last Friday debrief, he already came in there going, this is going to be a tough weekend. We haven't made the step we thought we made, and we are nowhere where we need to be. And this is where I think Yamaha need to make this brave move in many ways, risky move in many ways, and say, you know what, Franco, you're just not doing it. You need to go sort yourself out first. Frankie just doesn't look like he wants to be there. He's this forgotten man of the paddock. He doesn't have the motivation to me. I can read from his debriefs. I see him in his media debriefs. He's not bothered. Franco Morbidelli, as much as I would love to be a fan, and I am a fan of all of them, he's not bothered. So Yamaha need to do this. You know what? Bring a top rack Race Galioglu in with his riding style, and bring this freshness of a top rack, because he will bring something, because people say, well, if Franco goes, who do they bring in? Okay, Jorge Martin, apparently from what I can tell in the paddock, it's 100% done deal that Jorge Martin will be the factory rider next to Fabio next year, which I think is a good move, because he'll bring some of that Ducatiness with him and a breath of fresh air in many ways. But, do Yamaha now carry this ailing Morbidelli for the whole year that's not bringing anything to the project?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you wouldn't have thought after last year that the strange thing with him is that when they go to these open days where they take superbikes, Morbidelli is always the fastest.
Yeah.
Or equal to Bagnaia. It's so weird, because on a superbike and previously on the older bikes and that, he was so fast.
Yeah.
But now he climbs on this bike, and I mean the bike's obviously a dud, because even Fabio, who's obviously like top podium contender on a bad day, is battling now. He battles to just hang on to the group when they're all holding each other up, So the bike is not performing, but he can't be that far off. I mean, I think you told me, I didn't actually look it up, but in a sprint race, I think you said he was like 15 or 16 seconds off of the leader in a 12-lap race. That's not in MotoGP, where you're all on the same bike, same tires, all this stuff. That's just not going to cut it, eh? So, but this is the other problem, and I know I talk a lot about this aero crap and that, but it is a reality. Not long ago, you can say back in the day, but not long ago, a World Superbike rider, even though they're on not as good a tire and all this stuff, could jump on a MotoGP bike and perform. Yeah. Even after a few laps or whatever. Look at Bayless, went and won on a GP bike, straight after winning his world championship on a superbike, on different tires, on everything. Nowadays, all this aero crap and all the shit they got going on, a World Superbike rider's got absolutely no chance, because he climbs on that thing and it is like riding. It's like going from a superbike to a go-kart. Yeah. So it's completely taken the excitement out of in that point, because everyone loved it when a World Superbike guy or some wild card would come in and be fighting even better for a podium or just top 10, or doing better than what the rider that he's replacing was. Because it's like a breath of fresh air and something exciting, and also proving now that the bike's not that bad, But these days it can't happen. Unfortunately, it has to be a test rider, who's Cal, and I mean, obviously he retired because he was sick of racing. So you can't expect him to give it the. I have no doubt he pushes in that, but I don't think he's going to risk it like a willing rider, non-retired rider would. But you also can't expect now a top rack to come in there after riding the MotoGP bike for 5 laps on a fun day of Yamahas. You can't expect him to come in there and perform. There's like no way, you know. So yeah, I don't know what the hell they would do. If they bring in Cal, I mean, we saw how he rode last year. He rode well and stuff, but I mean, Darren, as a first-time MotoGP rider, was beating him. So I don't know what they would do, because no other rider, the Japanese riders are just there because they're Japanese. They're not fast at all. So not obviously not Nakagami. I mean the fill-in riders, those test riders, and that. But yeah, a World Superbike riders are no go, and I wouldn't imagine they would be keen on it either, you know, because they've got no preparation or anything in it. So it's going to take them a full season just to learn how to ride the thing. So yeah, I don't know what Yamaha would do.
Yeah, it's also not confidence inspiring when Toprak did test the MotoGP bike, like no information came out. You know, normally if it went really well, there would be like this. I think if it went really well, Toprak would be like, you know what, I'm not going to go ride that R1 anymore. I'm sick of that. Give me that thing. And he kind of came back to World Superbikes, kind of almost, you know, saying this is where I want to be, this is where I'm staying, type thing. So yeah, it's just I just look at it, and there's no ways Yamaha can carry on the season that. But I mean, MotoGP racing in general has got to the point, you know, back in the day, there was always lap traffic. There was always going to be riders getting lapped because there was this massive divide of a couple of fast guys and then a little bit of a midfield pack and then the slow guys that, you know, were a bit overweight but they filled the field. That's not the case anymore. I can't even think the last time a MotoGP rider got lapped.
No.
Franco Morbidelli, let me tell you, I mean, he was nowhere near getting lapped, but 27 seconds behind
in a 12-lap race. That's crazy. Yeah.
No, well,
that was the full one. Yes, 27. That's very big. Yeah.
In the sprint race, 17.1 seconds. I mean,
that's huge.
He had Augusto Fernandez beating him in the main race. He had Taka Nakagami. I mean, you know, no disrespect to Nakagami, but he's a glorified test rider in that championship now. So Yamaha have got big problems. And as Jonathan Borg says here, you know, let's not forget, Fabio Quartararo won at this very track last year and the year before that, you know. So
just quickly go back to Mark. This is where, again, he makes mistakes now, but you have to take your hat off to him, because Mark's been in this boat of a bad bike for a lot longer, and he's come through injuries and that, and look at how he's fighting. Lucky. He just will not give up. You know, Fabio's probably as good a rider as him, but look at the difference, you know. Fabio is happy to just ride on the back of the group, struggling. Obviously, he's not happy mentally in that, but he won't. Whereas Mark will he'll fight tooth and nail to get the best place he can. So.
Yeah, I agree. That's what makes me a fan of Marc Marquez, and that's why people love him, because of his, you know, like you said, that all-out riding style when he was crashing into people, and that people still praised him for it because he was winning championships end. Now all of a sudden it's he must retire, and MotoGP must get him out there, this and this.
Yeah.
But you do, you know, I watched that Amazon documentary of his, and you know, it starts off with the guy crying. I mean, he can't even talk about the last 2-3 years that he's had.
Yeah.
We forget. And I go back to the point that I made, where we sometimes are so focused on these guys as a product, rather than people. And I think we need to look back at that. Mariska Hutchinson,
he's a human.
He is. We do. We forget that you guys are humans. We look at you properly. And Mariska puts it perfectly here. Can we all just remember the meaning of supporters? I saw some horrible comments last weekend on Brad's performance. They were obviously misinformed, but being a supporter does not mean only supporting when he is winning, but also standing right behind him when they're not doing so well. And I do think we go back to they are products to us. So we can just say and do whatever we want because we've got social media platforms and then to just express ourselves. And we need to take a step back, think of the emotion side, think of what these riders go through to be there, what they have to risk to be there, to keep their jobs. It is so cutthroat. I mean, I was just a journalist and a fan in the paddock this weekend, and I just felt this tension. And
it's heavy.
You know, I'm seeing Brad after the race. I didn't get to see Brad hardly ever over the weekend. If I saw him 3 times, it was a lot because of media duty, and the guy's just trying to relax his neck, and he had to go to the fan zone, he needed to do this, and he had to do this. You never see the guy, but after the race, I mean, the guy was just emotionally, physically just drained. And he goes to sleep Sunday night, and it's up first thing Monday morning to the airport, on a plane, sitting in the airport, going to Argentina, and then from there it's to Kota, and then from there it's a race. It's mad.
MotoGP's made it mad now.
It's absolutely madness. So yeah, Yamaha are in big trouble. Again, it's still early days. It's only round one. Argentina, I don't think is going to be a good track for them. Kota, I don't think is going to be a good track for. I think they're going to love going back to Jerez on the 30th of April. But yeah, anyway, to end off on the Yamaha point, they can't just keep paying this Morbidelli to be finishing last and 27 seconds behind. Augusto Fernandez on a gas KTM, still learning how to ride a MotoGP bike. I mean, and from what I hear, again, being in the paddock, Fabio's got a clause in his contract that he can leave next year if he wants to, if he feels the Yamaha is not performing where he wants it to. So that's that's very interesting, because if this Martin rumor that he is going to factory Yamaha is true, could that move then open up the Pramac seat, which is a very good seat? Could factory Ducati say, depending on the season that Enea Bastianini has, okay, he had a terrible, unfortunate start to the season, could he be sent back to Pramac? You're still on a factory contract, you're still on a factory Ducati, you still get the same money, you're just in different colors, to make room for a Fabio Quartararo in the factory Ducati team. Because Ducati would just go like this: we are taking our biggest rival away from our biggest rival. Ducati came to make that happen.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was nice to see Jack doing. I mean, he never blitzed the field on the Ducati, but it was nice to see on the KTM he was racing exactly where he raced and how he raced on the Ducati. So I mean, I know it's not never nice, and it's to watch. Never mind race against a bike that's so much faster. But they've obviously got their drawbacks as well, because, like I said, Jack is racing. That's exactly where he raced last year. So, it's nice to see, because the bike's not far off of the Ducati. Just makes it hard to race, because even no matter the gap you pull, if you've got a long straight like Portimao, they close that and pass you down the straight and then hold you up until you're able to get past again. So, so what I was getting to was that it would be nice to see any other rider that's not on a Ducati get on, because you always go, oh, what if, and this and that. And I mean, when you're jumping from like a Honda, that's where it is at the moment. Obviously, as you can see with Alex, like all of a sudden there's going to be days where you can win or podium. But I think the Honda's the worst off bike at the moment, and has been for quite a while. But no matter what bike they're on, it would always be interesting to see somebody jump over to Ducati, because it's just at the moment it's just untouchable, So I'd like to see that anyway.
I must say, walking down the pit lane, I mean, I'm no technical expert by any means, but you look at the Ducati and everything just kind of fits in, and the lines look good and everything looks good. The Yamaha also kind of, we've seen that same kind of Yamaha silhouette for, it feels like 100 years now. KTM, there's a couple of little, like you said, the arrows that bulge out that you think, but okay. The Honda just looks so unfinished. It's got this short stub front, the back's up here. It just looks, and I mean, it's what happened in testing with Honda. They literally just threw everything they could. They went from this bike with no arrow, this, and you can see it in the bike, and you can see it in the performances, other than Marc Marquez's, but with Jean-Mi and Alex Rins, it is by nowhere near a competitive enough package to where it needs to be. Marc Marquez himself said for the qualifying lap he had to get that toe, and that's what got him there. Look, you still got to ride the bike fast enough in a tow. People say, his toe. You know what? You still got to ride the thing in a tow. It's not like he puts it on the back, then sits back and gets a tow, and he's taken there. He's still got to hang table and brake, and then on the sprint race as well, he said he was making up all his time, under braking and that's where his team said, you can't do that anymore. MotoGP's moved on to such a level, and this is where he
level's too high.
Yeah, this is where he needs to be slapped around the head, and you can't do that anymore, because it's way beyond that. You can't these guys, the Pecco Bagnaiyas and that, and this is where Pecco Bagnaia is so good. Pecco Bagnaia has perfected. He's got Rossi's late braking. He's got Lorenzo's corner speed, and he's got Casey Stoner's getting out of a corner.
Yeah, and mentality of being so smooth and relaxed.
Yeah, and he's got the bike to do it. Ducati have molded this machine around, and you think Ducati, they had Stoner, so they've got that bit of that DNA. They had Rossi, so they got a bit of that DNA. They had Lorenzo, so they got a bit of that DNA. They had Dovi, they got so that, you know, and hats off to Ducati again. They've spent the money. People say, yeah, there's too many Ducatis, and I agree with that, but you know what? They spend the money, they spend the resources, and they've now created this.
Yep. And they give everybody the same bike. That's the best part. Everybody gets the same bike.
Well, there's Marco Bezzecchi. I mean, when you messaged me your prediction, you said Bagnaia, Marquez, Bezzecchi. And I thought, okay, Bagnaia, sure, Marquez, but Bezzecchi, you know, like, yeah, he would be up there in the top 5 or 6, but not on a podium. And there's a Bezzecchi who, let's be honest, was not the most dominant rider in Moto2, you know, didn't really do much. On a MotoGP podium on a 2022 machine, which is Pecco Bagnaia's championship-winning machine from last year. So it's like you said, they're all given this fair playing field. But watching the Ducati trackside and the Aprilia, I must say, it's just this: they get in, they hit every single apex, and they come out, and that thing is so stable. And this is where Pecco Bagnaia needs credit, because yes, he's on a fantastic machine, on the best machine. But the guy makes no mistakes. He hits every single apex. He breaks at the same point, and he really is just one with that machine of his now, and he's so dominant. So it's going to be very hard to beat them. The Aprilia's Maverick Vignoles look very good. We'll touch on it now. But just to go back to Jack Miller quickly, a lot of people asking, you know, but what kind of change did they make? Speaking to Jack, they brought this new chassis in, which, you know, I don't know what it did or whatever. But Jack was saying the biggest place that they found an advantage was, and you can see it by watching, even on TV, is with engine braking. He just said when he first rode the bike, the engine braking, you know, he wasn't able to slide the bike, and like you were talking about, so controlled. And if you watch the sprint race, some of those moves Jack was pushing, like it's going, it was great to see this MotoGP bike sideways and stuff again. And that's what Jack brought. They kind of freed this bike up to give more to the rider in many ways. And like you said, that is what they need in many ways.
Definitely, I think because, you know, obviously KTM, everyone forgets, as always, that KTM are really new to this championship. So everybody else has got so much experience. It's beyond years. So I think that because their system isn't perfected as yet, I mean, you're never going to get perfect, but it's not close to the others in terms of their aero and electronics. So I think that they have to give a bit more control to the rider to like how can I say it, overstep those boundaries, you know. Whereas maybe Ducati are a little bit ahead in that, so they can they've got way more control electronically and stuff, just because they've got the staff and experience and people that have those top of the level staff been doing the same job in the same position for 10 years, you know. So I think that's where it comes, because they were the only ones sliding. And Brad, when he was in race 2, when he was there, they were the only two really sliding, you know. So I think that's why when they give a little bit back to the rider, they can make up for where they're lacking in engineering. But I have no doubt that they're gonna get that right as well. I mean, I think KTM probably, I don't even think they have a budget, because they're so big and they're putting everything they can into this, them and all their support. So I think at the moment they probably got the most opportunity. Ducatis, I know their sales are up and what, but I think KTM have the most opportunity to improve. So and the financial backing to do that. So I'm sure that I believe this year that they're going to get it right.
I agree with you, especially from what I saw and heard. Like I said, even when Brad was doing so badly and it wasn't looking good on Friday and Saturday with the setup, and Jack was doing well, Brad's team were like, yeah, it's cool. We even told Guidotti was like, yeah, no, you know, internally they've got this plan, they stick into the plan, and they know what the results are going to be. So the confidence in that team is sky high. They've got the 2 riders to do it. They've got the budget to do it. They've got the personnel behind now to do it, with these extra brains coming in. So I think it's going to be really good. One thing that I need to slap myself on the wrist for, because I think I mentioned it at the beginning of this year or last year, is Brad Binder's contract. He is contracted for this year and for next year. I thought his contract was up this year, but it's next year as well. So that kind of eliminates that. Just for people that also were stupid like me and thought it was the end of this year. I was going to say something now with regards to the sprint race. Touching upon that, the sprint race was created obviously for a bit more entertainment into the sport, but it was mainly created because on Saturday last year, I would go to a MotoGP Saturday as well. You go and there's this excitement of FP3, then Q1 and Q2, and you would get like really excited, you know, and then 2:30 comes and it's just over. Like, okay, well, what do I do now? You know, so spectators weren't really staying or hanging around on a Saturday. This sprint race, you know, you had your FP3, your Q1, your Q2, and then 3:00 you had a sprint race. And I must say, I enjoyed the sprint race. It's more racing, with a racing hall like just absolutely loves. But it also did keep the crowd around. The grandstands stayed packed for the whole of Saturday. So I think the sprint race is good. I like it. And this is where Dorna also need to look at these kind of moves like Joan Mir's on Fabio, where he got a penalty, which I can see Joan Mir saw a gap and he went for it, but he went for it a bit too fast, kind of thing. I
do think they're going a bit extreme with these penalties and that, because you could see Fabio actually like picked up a little bit. So of course, Joan Mir thought he's running wide. So it was a racing incident. Like there has to be a line at some point. I mean, this isn't chase, you know, it's racing motorcycles. So when there's something stupid, for example, I don't even know what ended up happening about the Moto3, but when they cross the line and you're not concentrating, you're riding to the back of somebody, or whether it was the guy in front that braked, I don't actually know what the result of that was. In that kind of stuff, there needs to be disciplinary action or some sort of penalization and that. But when it comes to a proper racing incident, like an innocent one, I mean, you can't be penalizing guys for that. Otherwise, what do they want people to not ever pass, you know?
But this is the talking point now. So MotoGP have created the sprint race where riders have 12, some tracks 14 laps to go for it. So now you're going to penalize riders that see a gap. This is not, you know, would Joan Mir have pulled that move on the main race Sunday? No, because he would have gone, oh, well, I'm coming to the straight, there's 24 laps. Now, Dorna have put these riders in the situation where you got 12 laps, 14 laps. And you could see it by Pecco even at the start. You know, he just shoved it on the inside of Enea. You know, Marini's incident with Enea Bastianini was also just a racing incident. He went in there, tucked the front. Unfortunately, there was a Bastianini there and he impact. But Dorna need to now relook at this and say, we've put these riders in the sprint situation. We can't be now slapping them with penalties and telling them you can't take a gap when you see it. Well, it's a sprint race. If I don't take the gap when I see it, I'm going to lose out, because every single lap counts, because it's a 12-lap sprint race.
Well, exactly. So, just like in World Superbike. Superbike also have that kind of pressure. And I mean, when there's a racing incident, it's never, they'll say under investigation, but if it's a racing incident, generally they don't do something about it. If it's something like stupid, that deserves penalty, then obviously they look at it that way. Yes. But I think, I mean, you're talking about, you like the fact, so you're obviously building up to the point of like, is it a good idea or not? And I think that, I mean, more racing, definitely. I mean, if you were doing 3 full races, obviously, then you're starting to make it dangerous, because physically guys can't manage with it. But I think people are hopping on the bandwagon of the guys that have been in only that paddock their entire life. So we're talking 20 years maybe for Espargaro and a few guys that are against it. And they're just used to this routine of getting through the weekend, doing their one race and going home. But I mean, World Superbikes are riding around on crappy tires, heavy motorcycles, doing 3 races a weekend, and all the qualifyings and all that kind of stuff. So I think the racers, like everyone I've heard, like I guess the younger guys, and they're like guys that are racers, you know, like just you can tell it by the way they are, like Jack and Mark and these guys. Yeah, exactly. I mean, these guys want to race. So it is a short race. So the only problem is obviously the risk. But I mean, physically, how much more physical can it be than a World Superbike? They're only going a second or second and a half, maybe 2 seconds faster on better tires, lighter bikes, all these kinds of things. So I think they just need time to open their mind a little bit. And once they've settled, they're all going to enjoy it. When World Superbike initially announced their I think they used to do that reverse grid for the Super Bowl race or whatever. Everyone thought that was crazy, including me. It ended up working out, even though I still don't think it's a good idea for safety. But now, they run 3 rounds, and you never see anybody afterwards like, oh, I'm on a drip because I'm exhausted, blah, 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 stuff like that. These guys are all professionals. All of them train all day, freaking live racing. And so, yeah, I think they just need time to get over the negativity. And Aleix Espargaro is a cyclist, and we know what cyclists are like.
Yeah, we do know what you like. You need a blood bank halfway so you can kind of take one out of the fridge and put one in.
Bitch and moan all the time as well.
But yeah, I think what they need to do is they need to come to a world endurance race and see how you guys do it, because there's these 35 to 50-year-old guys circulating for 24 hours in the dark, in the snow, in the everything, and not complaining at all. But I think the first sprint race was always going to kind of be what is it? I think riders and teams are going to slowly but surely change their strategies. They have to, because Aleix Espargaro was saying, this is crazy. There's riders injured and whatever, but it's also up to you as a rider how you want to attack this. A guy like Jorge Martin, a sprint race is built for a Jorge Martin. A sprint race is built for a Jack Miller, like you said, Marc Marquez, because that's perfect. It kind of takes the strategy out. It kind of takes a little bit of the bike performance out, as we saw with Marc Marquez. Let's just go. Whereas the longer race, and that's where the Ducati is so good, because if you look in the sprint race, Jack Miller's KTM was not that much slower than the Ducatis in the sprint race.
No.
But in the longer race now, where you got to flip to that map 3 or whatever to fuel save, and I could hear it coming over that crest, the KTM still, that something cuts, it comes over, the wheel comes up, and those Ducatis just float over there and just carry that momentum,
Yeah.
So yes, the Ducati's faster, but I think it's still an electronics game at the moment, and maybe aero, that it's just getting over that crest a lot better and carrying that speed, because Alex Marquez was the perfect illustration of how good that Ducati is. The guy couldn't dream of a top 10, top 12, top 14
on a fair day,
in Portimao last year, on a good day on that Honda.
He
comes on a Ducati and he's racing for a top 4 first time out on the bat. It's
exactly.
I mean, it's just a clear illustration. Alex Marquez is not a slow rider by any means. I still watched him outside last year, and I could see a fast rider there, but on a bike that wasn't willing to go with his riding style or willing to play the game with, Alex Marquez is not like his brother. Alex is a lot smoother rider, and the Honda didn't like to be ridden like that. Climbs on this Ducati that likes, you know what, I think I could climb on a Ducati MotoGP bike and it would make me look good. It is.
Could you beat Franco though?
I would probably finish a couple of seconds behind. I'd probably be the first MotoGP rider in the last 15 years to be lapped. There's no doubt about that. But I think what Honda need to do, and this is where I think Joan Mir, from what I saw of him out on track, will bring something to Honda if they listen, is he's got a blend of smooth with aggression. Because up till now, they've just had this Marc Marquez and this Pol Espargaro who like to be aggressive. And MotoGP doesn't work that way anymore.
No, it's changed,
Flat out aggression is not going to win you MotoGP races.
No.
We've got to have this blend of smoothness. So I think that's where Rins and Joan Mir, with this Japanese guy that came from Suzuki now with Honda, will bring. But they need time. And unfortunately,
there's not.
MotoGP gives it waits for no man. So I was a little bit frustrated. I was ready to throw rocks at Alex Marquez because the last 2 laps he was just riding defensive, holding Brad off. And credit to Zarco, like he just played their bluff and just kind of got past them both on the last lap. But I think it's fair to say, from the first Portimao race weekend, as you said, Ducati are still the bike and package to beat, but KTM are better. Yamaha are still a work in progress. Honda are still a work in progress. But I think they're going to be there a lot more. And with the sprint race, the more data gained from sprint races on soft tires and trying things, and the Jack Millers trying different things, I think we're going to be in for a very entertaining season.
Definitely. And I mean, Aprilia, I don't think their bike's much better than last year, certainly not worse, but now they've got 3 able riders. So in terms of performance, they've got 3 riders now, not just Aleix and the odd occasion Vinales, you know.
I love how there's 3.
So yeah, I think the racing is going to be mad this year, I think.
I didn't even mention Aprilia, and I like how you said 3 riders because, we're all still a bit bitter with Raul Fernandez taking our Darren Binder spot. He showed glimpses in testing and throughout the weekend there were 1 or 2 laps, but again, I see a rider there that's not ready for MotoGP. I watch him out on track and he runs wide. He's way too aggressive. He's not mature enough. I see other Aprilia riders, smooth, on point, bikes are stable. And I just see this guy going in, the front wheels locking, he runs wide, he has to get on the gas. And I see a very immature rider in many ways in Raul Fernandez, and he proved it in the racing again. He didn't finish. He finished 11th in the sprint race, and that was quite good. 8 seconds behind. Let's not forget he passed Brad, an injured on a crappy bike, Brad, in the sprint race, but in the main race where the big money is and all the points are, he couldn't prove himself again. Talking about the Aprilias, it was great to see, and we kind of knew Miguel Oliveira would do well on Aprilia. It suits his riding style. Watching him trackside, it was good. But then again, it was the perfect situation for Miguel, a track he knows, a track he loves. We'll have to see when he gets to the Cotas and the tracks that he kind of battles himself, and he battled on the KTM. That'll be a true reflection. But the Aprilia is a really good package. Watching it out on track, it is stable under braking. It is stable mid-turn. It turns where the riders want it to turn. It comes out the turns. It's stable. And I liked the Maverick Vinales I saw in Portimao because I saw a different approach. I didn't see this Maverick Vinales that was going, I need to top FP1, FP2, FP3.
Yeah.
And that kind of, and what happened?
And then by the race comes, he's on, his head's popped. Yeah.
Well, this is the thing. He would go and want to be the fastest guy in the practice sessions, and if he wasn't, he would lose his mind, and he couldn't recover from that.
Yeah.
I saw Maverick Vinales this time that just worked at it, and had a good FP1, not such a good FP2, but and he worked at it. And come race day, certainly Sunday, it was a phenomenal ride. I mean, he was closing. He kept Pecco honest, and towards the end was the Foster rider and finished 0.6 behind.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome.
Even in the sprint race, he came, and he finished 5th there. Yeah. But it was a learning curve for all of them. I think his mindset might change. He might do things a little bit differently in the next sprint race. Yeah. But if we can have that Maverick Vinales week in, week out, there's no denying that we could finally see this Maverick Vinales that has threatened to be this MotoGP World Champion for so many years.
Yeah, definitely. Don't forget all the crashes Bagnaia had last year, Fast and won so many races, but he did have a lot of crashes. At one point, didn't look like he had a chance for the championship even. So, if we can see an older Vinales that's super consistent and, but changed in the way that his head doesn't pop so easily, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of title contenders, but you can't change the fact that it's going to be not impossible, but near impossible to beat a Ducati in a close battle. Just for the simple fact that when the tires get worn and these Aprilias and KTMs can't carry the corner speed to make up for their lack in straight line speed where they can at least hold the slipstream, once the tires start sliding and that, the Ducatis can stop the bike a little bit more and pick it up and just get out of there. As you could see with Alex, when the tires were worn, it was even worse, Sometimes when Brad did an early-ish pass on Alex, he had a little bit of a gap at least onto the straight, but before halfway, Alex was already coming past. So I think that's exaggerated a lot on the used tires. So unless you've got a Maverick or an Aleix or a Brad at a slippery track, maybe or something, someone that can actually make a bit of a gap from a Ducati, I think it's going to be very hard to beat them because most tracks have these straights that the Ducatis can just breeze by if it's a close race.
Well, I agree with you 100%. But the other side of that is we saw with the riders having to push so hard and the crashes and injuries and stuff. It looks like Pecco's going to run away with this. It does, but they are like on this fine line. They are on a knife's edge, and it's there's going to be mistakes from every rider because, as we said, MotoGP is so cutthroat now that they are on the limit every single lap of every single session. And, you know, you look what happened to Paul Espargaro. It just takes a moment like that where, I mean, what even happened with Paul Espargaro? We don't even know. Was it cold tire? Was it an electronic failure? These kind of things just happened. Then there's the incident like Marini and Bastianini. There's Enea Bastianini set himself up perfectly for the weekend. I think he was going to be a big contender in the main race on Sunday. Sprint race comes, the first victim of the sprint race. We knew something like that was going to happen. So there's all these factors that are going to be thrown in that people don't think the season is over just because Pecco's had a
Definitely not. And remember, all of those guys are coming back, and then there's another 4 positions that those people are fighting for. So somebody that scored a 7th is now going to be scoring, that's riding for that effort in 11th, you know. So yeah, I think it's going to be an exciting year. I mean, regardless of who gets injured and who's out, and it's going to be exciting because those guys are going to come back, and maybe even they don't come back as championship threats, but they're going to mix up the championship because they're going to be fighting for their own, you know?
Yes. Exactly like Brian Labuskachny mentions here, and I mentioned it in the One Paddock Talk. You know, Luca Marini was the man in testing. He looked so consistent. He was fast on a 1-lap dash. He was fast in the sprint simulation. He was fast on a race simulation. 0 points from the first race weekend, you know. So that's how things can change. And like Jack Miller said, testing is testing, racing is racing. But I think to finish off on MotoGP, there was a lot we could take from it. We do have to kind of put it in a ball and go, you know, that's round 1 ball. Once we have more balls, we can start, you know, picking things from them. But it is going to be really exciting. And I think there's a lot of positives for KTM. I think there's a lot of positives for Brad. Yes, Jack is there and he's putting pressure on Brad, but that's also going to help Brad because now Brad's got this teammate that he has to beat. And I saw, you know, Brad dug deep on Sunday, and I'm not saying that he only finished where he did because Jack was there, but there was certainly extra motivation seeing his teammate in front of him going,
100%.
there is 100%. No chance I'm letting this oak who's just climbed on this motorbike with his Ducati mechanics and beating me. So that's why KTM spent the money on Jack and these Ducati techs, is to come and help Brad. And I think it's going to. And if it can help Brad, if Brad and what frustrated me a little bit, I'll be honest, as a fan and as a journalist, is, and I said it to a couple of people, including Trevor, is so Brad was hurting a little bit. But at what point did they not just go, you know what, we've got nothing to lose for the sprint race, bang Jack Miller's setup in that he did the 37.5 lap time on, bang soft Jack setup and just try it in the sprint race. Just try and get that data. So that was the one disappointing thing for me. Look, in the end, it worked out. He had a fantastic race and he did his Sunday match.
But even race 1, he still did a good race, even in the sprint race. It was still a good race.
He was knocked off by Zarco, which ruined his race.
But his lap times were still good and everything. So it was actually, even that was a good recovery.
I just hope at some point he'll try a Jack setup with a soft and he's kind of always shied away from it because the KTM's just never been able to work with it. But maybe that's where he can just ultimately, we know he's got a hard and a medium setup all day long. He's got a race set up all day long. But to get that 1 lap, just try a soft and a Jack.
Oh, there's no doubt they're going to try it now. I mean, they've never done that in their career. So like in prime conditions, clear track, or up in pole position. So there's no doubt that Brad's side's going to be scratching their head and wanting to try that now. And I'm sure that everybody on both sides would be keen and supporting, pushing it in that direction, because if both of them go that direction and it works, it's just they're growing together, you know, then they're on to the next thing to try, you know.
Well, this is not the first time Jack's going to try soft. So the nice thing is they're going to try it over and over again, and they're eventually going to get a really good setup to do a fast lap time and for a sprint race on a soft, because it's going to be tried so many times. So I'm excited. I think that finishes off MotoGP. I'm going to chuck to you. Give me your honest appraisal of Darren Binder in Moto2.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, he's done a flipping good job, even after the crash and that. Obviously, everyone disappointed for that, but he's doing a really good job. And again, it was nice to see him so steady. Like I said earlier, like they don't do a lot of riding and stuff. They ride a little bit to keep their eye in there in South Africa, so you got to keep that in mind. when they go to testing over there, those guys have pretty much just come from weeks on end of practicing and riding R1s and superbikes and all sorts of shit. And they get there, and then he's taken a good, I think, a steady approach to it all. He hasn't been setting the world on fire, but in a category like that, it's difficult to do anyway, with everything so close and so restricted, and everyone's on the exact same stuff. So, and even through race week, he just built and built and built and built, and every time he went forward and forward and forward. So, the race was obviously doing a good job before he fell, and then picked up and still. I mean, there were days in Moto3 and that where he would have a good race and still not finish in that position and that close. So he had a crash in a place in the track where he still lose a lot of time and still managed to get to within like 1 point. He was just on the cuff of scoring a point. So I think he did an awesome job. I don't think it'll affect his confidence. He's not that kind of rider. He's a little bit like Mark in that sense. He doesn't mind throwing it down the road. So I think he'll just take confidence from the whole event, from the whole week. So I think it's just going to do him good going forward. And I mean, for him to come down, I don't think it's easy going. I think it's easier going from Moto3 up to Moto2 over going from GP down to that thing. So I think it's just going to get better and better. I mean, he's outdoing his teammate a lot, and he's a fast rider, his teammate as well. So like I said, I think it's just going to get better and better for him.
Yeah, I was really impressed, like you said, with his approach throughout the weekend. It was so nice from a fan point of view and from a personal point of view, being mates with him, seeing this happy Darren again. He was smiling. His team absolutely love him. His team are like starstruck by this guy, and he feels at home. Last year, when you sit back and you look at last year, Darren was kind of a piece in this puzzle that they had to fill, and it was a complete disaster last year. The team wasn't where it needed to be. They had the sponsor. They didn't have the sponsor. He was used in many ways last year, Darren, and especially once the With You sponsor had kind of the news came out that sponsor was gone, and they'd signed Ralph Fernandez. The last couple of they really just did kind of put Darren in a corner and say, listen, just finish the year, sit down, shut up, and you could see by his performances and that he was crashing. There was just his crew chief is best Chinas with Ralph Fernandez, and they are now together. So in many ways, they were just kind of making Darren look bad. In the setup now, Darren's happy, he's smiling, he's babbling, he loves riding the Moto2 bike because, like you said, and you've ridden one, there's none of this aero, there's none of this, there's all these buttons on the side, and I still did the video that I posted on Facebook and YouTube, walk around Darren's bike, and I'm like, hey, check all these buttons. He's like, yeah, but hardly any of them work. There's pit lane limiter and launch control. There's no traction, and there's one to change maps that you can change maps, but that's it. And Darren is absolutely loving it. He enjoys the Dunlop tires. I know that a Dunlop tire is not as outright fast as a Michelin or a Pirelli, but the time you can do on the first flying lap is the time you can do on the 60th flying lap on those tires.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I think it suits those because those bikes are very rigid. It's a GP bike, so it's a prototype. It's very, very rigid. So I think the Dunlops actually suit that bike anyway. So yeah, I mean, he's clearly enjoying it because he's doing so well. So, and I think it's a good confidence thing for him as well, because I know he's been in the GP paddock forever, for a really long time, but it's pretty much been every year not feeling worthy because he's been in teams that maybe he had to force his way in because he's so desperate to be there. Yes. And maybe didn't feel appreciated in that. Whereas now he's got guys that are wanting there, So it's a good thing for his confidence and stuff. And I'm sure that will help him not having to overdo things so much, So yeah, I think good things will come from it. I think if he's this far up already and at this pace already, I think he's going to be near the front in short amounts of time.
I agree. Like I said, I was impressed with how he handled the whole weekend. He kind of built his pace up. He had that one little tuck in qualifying or FP3 on his fast lap, but he went into Q1, went out of Q1, went into Q2, did a phenomenal lap there, qualified 11th, first time out, which was brilliant. Watching him in the race, he started so nicely. He was, intelligent moves, not rushing things. And then going down into turn 5, 2 or 3 laps in a row, he just was running wide and not pulling it in. And I thought, just with brake problems, what's going on? And then, a couple of laps later, tucked the front. And speaking to him afterwards, he just said the rear tire grip just dropped quite a lot, so he just wasn't having the same kind of feel. But my only criticism of Darren and this is both as a journo, as a fan, and as a mate, is in that situation, you feel the rear tire is lacking. You feel that you've got to lose now 2/10. And we saw Albert Arenas do it in the Moto2 race. Started off brilliantly, was right in the battle for top 4. He ended up finishing 8th because he just lost the grip. But if you've got to sacrifice 2/10 to finish the race, potentially what could have been a top 10, top 8, that's where Darren lacks a bit. Darren's weakness is his biggest advantage. That all out, I'm just going to go as fast as I fucking can all the time. That is Darren's biggest strength, is that he's just never say die. I just don't give up. But it's just his weakness, because just lose 2/10 a lap. Just sacrifice 2/10 a lap. Maybe 7, 8 laps time, the feeling will come back. But instead of sacrificing that 2/10, I'm going to carry on pushing. Down I go, out of a top 10. Listen, did well to pick the yes. Usain Bolt would have been proud of that. He sprinted to that bike like a gazelle in full flight, Machana. He sprinted, picked it up. The marshals gave him a push. He came back on behind Sean Dillon Keddy, Rory Skinner, Dennis Foggia, and De La Porta, Moto3 World Champion. Foggia, one of his rookie rivals. And a lap later, he was ahead of all of them. So, there's positives to take. But again, my only kind of just back off that 2/10 when you need to. Just back it off. He's going to have to learn that. He's going to have to learn that in Moto2 with the Dunlop tires and how competitive the field is. Yeah,
definitely. And like you said, as a racer, you've got to be learning every single time you ride. Otherwise, you might as well stop, So I think this is the most valuable lesson I think he can learn. I think he just needs to be like Brad, like learn a little bit from Brad, because Brad is like a thinker and he's sensible in that regard. He pushes, of course. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying he's sensible. There's a time to push and a time to this is the limit kind of thing. But it's also why everyone likes Darren so much, because he's got that mark in him. He'll push until he crashes, But I think especially we keep talking about how cutthroat the paddock, and it's like a fine line between earning a living and not being able to even get a ride. So I think if he wants to make it this future of living and going up, stepping up even from there and that, I have no doubt he will learn to calm down a little bit. As soon as he's got more confidence in himself and that, to not have to push beyond the limit. But once he does get that right, he's gonna see, and I think the result will just come pouring in once he does get that, because once he learns that, I toned it down a little bit, I played it safe, and I still scored an 8th place, he thinks, geez, I can get the bike a little bit better, and I keep doing this, we're just going to go forward. So I'm sure that'll change just over time. The unfortunate part is that you don't have that much time. He's been there for a long time, and it's still this cutthroat and this hard. So hopefully this is the year. Yeah, I think it will be. Because Darren is that kind of rider that when he's happy with his surroundings, you can't compare Brad and Darren. They're two different people in many ways. Brad can make the best out of a bad situation by kind of being more calculated. Darren just wants to kind of fix things by going all out, going through it. I kind of look at it as like me and my brother. I was always the more calculated. If I need to go slower, I'll go slower. Or if I need to do this, whereas my brother would just go hang cable and ride it through a brick wall to go through the wall. But I think in the team and the environment that Darren's in now, they'll help him become that rider. It was nice. I didn't see it, but Trevor was telling me it was so nice when Trevor went into the box to see Darren. The team ran straight up to Trevor, and it wasn't this, your son threw away. They were like, your son is a superstar. We absolutely love him. He did so well, So I think that's the kind of environment Darren needs, where it's, you're not, why can't you supportive,
be supportive and structured. So I think it's going to be a great year for Darren, as you said. I think it's going to be a great year for Brad. Brian Ritchie's asked me, will I be able to get them on the show anytime soon? I think, we'll give it a couple of rounds, maybe halfway through the year. We'll certainly get. I think Darren is a little bit more inviting than Brad. I must be honest. I love Brad, but there's only so many times you can ask before you kind of get the idea that where you kind of take the hint. I'll definitely try, but as I said, I think Darren will be a little bit more accommodating. Brad is just also, he's just so hectic, he really is. I saw it again this weekend. There's just so many commitments because this product in motor that I was talking about. Rushay Mudley, let's talk about young Rushay. It was great seeing the Mudley family. Also, I don't get to see them as much as I want because, and you're going to laugh at this, believe it or not, Arushan Mudley, remember Arushan that, like me, is just not technically minded at all, couldn't change wheels. I remember the first time I tried to be technical was when I was racing for Ducati at Kalami. I changed my own front wheel. I went out, I got to the top of West Bank, and I was like, this effing thing, what is this thing doing? And I heard this clunk, 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 clunk. I pulled in the pits and I left one of the calipers off. So from that day on, I went, that is it. I'm not technical. So here's this Arushan Mudley that also was not very technical. Now, Red Bull Rookies has taught him to be Jerry Burgess. The guy does. I saw him balancing a tire. I saw him after the crash, pulling the bike apart, stripping it down, changing a clutch. I mean, the man works. Like eventually, I took him a piece of bread and butter because you just never get any chance to eat anything. But I must give a huge pat on the back to that family. They've made the commitment that so many of you guys have taken themselves out of the comfort zone, moved to Spain, doing the CRV championship as well. Rushay's doing a lot of training. They're doing everything right. They really are doing everything the way it needs to be done to be in that paddock. Listen, we know the reality is that you have to have money behind you. Thankfully, they've got a great business in Dynamic Express. Rushan and his dad and the family have built up a great foundation to give Rushay the opportunity, and they're working at it. And Rushay did a fantastic job, qualified second. Listening to, and Arushan and Rushay, they're very quiet, humble kind of people. And that's maybe Rushay's biggest disadvantage. He needs a bit more of a killer instinct from what I could see, because also one of the team mechanics that have worked with Brad and Darren when they were in the Red Bull Rookies said Rushay has got all the talent, fantastic, but when he was second on the grid, there's more media and everything involved, and he just seems to go into this bubble.
Shies away,
Shies away. And even when I put the camera in his face, he's like, he talks very softly and he doesn't know what to do. So I think he'll come more out of his shell the more time he spends in that paddock. I think he does need to just find a little bit of ruthlessness to him, which I'm sure Darren and Brad will also help him with. But to qualify second, okay, the race didn't go to plan, but he did lead. In first race, he still said to me he kind of got overwhelmed by leading. He wanted to push and be there, made the mistake, and landed up finishing 8th, I think. And then in race 2, again, the plan was stay at the front. It's Red Bull Rookies. You just got to keep yourself at the front. Was too early, pushing too hard and crashing out. But again, a lot of positives to take from that young man.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's all part of the learning process, especially for a kid now trying to learn the aggressive part of it. I guess that's what he was doing. That's why he made those mistakes. He's trying to be aggressive. So, and it's always just a confidence thing. And like the people around you inspire confidence, and then mainly your results. That's what gets you the most confidence. So once confidence comes and he learns what it's all about, I'm sure that the aggressive part will come out of him. Like you said, even Arushan, he was a great racer and he still can ride well. And he came across very soft, but he was as hard as nails on track. So I mean, it's not to say just because South Africans generally are brought up very humble and very respectful and stuff. So it comes across like that. In his case, very much so. But he's riding flat out. I mean, he's at the front of a world class championship and a class that's brought so many world championship and people in world championship from that class, So I think if he starts off this well, I know they're doing so much, like you said, in Spain. They've been there for a long time already, actually. So I think there's him. I've been following it obviously because he's in it, so I follow the results and that. And there's a few kids that I know in there. And there's a group of kids that I think are going to be the next batch of these guys that we're going to be talking about on MotoGP. So, it's very cool. It's very exciting racing and that. And even in his Spanish championship riding and that, I think he's doing well and he's going to make that step forward this year, podiuming and fighting for wins and hopefully some wins as well. And I think that's going to be a game changer for him mentally. So then his performance is going to change completely in terms of he's going to be at the front every weekend,
Yeah. I agree. I think you've hit it spot on there. I'm excited at the prospect of Rushay Mudley. I must say, I really am, because, as I said, they're doing things the right way, and there's a serious amount of talent there. And the beauty is, something you never had. He's got Brad and Darren and Trevor Binder, who have been through it all right there in the paddock with him. When you went, it was, goodbye, here's the keys to a camper van, go learn tracks, go learn cultures, go do everything yourself. So I think he's got all the ingredients there to be Brad Binder in many ways. He is Shane. But yeah, the nice thing is we could potentially see, we will see another South African in the Moto3, Moto2, and MotoGP paddock. His biggest disadvantage now is this new rule that he can only go into Moto3 when he's 18. And so he's going to spend another 2 years in Red Bull rookies. By the time he's 18, he's going to be, he's already almost more hyped, so it's not like these youngsters, 16-year-old small guys coming into Moto3 anymore. Moto3 in 2 years' time is going to be like these Yetis, going to look like old men riding these Moto3.
Yeah, that's the thing. And a Moto3, to me, I don't like the Moto3 category. I like that it's a category for kids and stuff. But the problem is it's so different to the Moto2s and that. It's like how often do you see a guy that's winning in Moto3, then he goes to Moto2 and he just can't ride a big bike because he's had no experience. He's riding around on like a Sky Electric, Moto3 is like a Sky Electric. So it's I like it, but it's so different. Like, how do you expect now 18-year-old to only start in Moto3, and then what? You're going to be an old man when you step up to Moto2 and learn how to ride a big bike. It's I mean, they're figuring out ways around it because the guys are all practicing on R1s and that kind of stuff. But I mean, everyone's got this situation now, so I'm sure that if that is the case and he's in World Championship in Moto3, I have no doubt he'll be riding 600s and that kind of stuff in practice or wherever, if there's championships, he can be racing them in. So yeah, I think there is a bit of light there, a way to work around it. At the end of the day, everyone has to work around it. Just I think South Africans, no matter how much money you have, you limit it because you must times whatever you're spending by 20. So I think that's just the big factor. I mean, the guys, normal people, I wouldn't say normal people over there, but kind of normal people there can afford to put their kids through racing to a point. Whereas over here, you can't come here as a wealthy South African. You can't go to Europe and spend that kind of money. It just doesn't make sense. So, but yeah, like I say, they've got good relationships. They're very likable people. So I think he'll be fast enough on the bigger bikes that as soon as he can get out of Moto3, first of all, get there. But as soon as he can get out of it, I think he'll be ready to ride on a 600 because he's already riding them actually.
Yeah, he is. He's got the talent. Like you said, he's already doing the hard graft on those bikes. So he'll be there. There's no doubt about it. Shez, thank you so much. I'm starving. I'm about to eat my pen and paper here. So we're going to call it now because I've got nice takeaway food waiting for me downstairs because too lazy to cook. I must say it was nice going to Portimao MotoGP and pulling out my UK card and paying with pounds rather than my South African card. When you start the thing, you see it like light up luminous red. So yeah, that was better. So yeah, Shez, thank you so much again to everyone that's tuned in here with the comments and that. Thank you so much. Got a lot of great feedback from what I was able to do in the paddock. It was nice that now with Dorna, especially with me from Motor Rider World and the 13 runs I did last year, they were a lot more lenient with things and they loved, so I did my first paddock video on the Friday and I walked through the paddock. And then on the Saturday morning, I saw the lady from Dorna walking up to me and I thought, oh God, here we go. I'm going to get cucked out and take my pass away and burn it. And she came, she said, watched your videos, love what you're doing. We really want to expose MotoGP more in South Africa. And there's still talk about Kyalami and stuff. So it was nice. I was like, treated very nicely in Portimao, I must say, because I think, they're taking South Africa a lot more seriously, which is great. And it was great that they're seeing the content. It was great that everyone supports the content. So yeah, please just like it, share it as far and wide as possible. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do that many MotoGP runs this year. My next one will probably only be Silverstone because of my full-time job commitments here in the UK now. And of course, budget. So, the more I can promote this and the more I can push this and the more money I can make out of this, then I don't have to do the mundane 9-to-5 job. And then I can go to more MotoGPs and show you more of the MotoGPs. So let's see. Hopefully that'll happen. But Shez, thank you so much for joining me, my bud. All the best with recovering on your injury And for the Lamar 24 hour, we'll certainly be following you, and just send us and keep us updated as much as possible.
Oh, well, thanks, my man. I appreciate it. And thanks, everyone, for watching and having me.
Like, I give Ads and the two beautiful girls of yours a nice big kiss, and hopefully see you guys soon. Miss you, man.
Likewise. Likewise.
Cheers, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in, and have a great rest of your week. Goodbye.